Welcome, everybody, to Morning Coffee Review. Today, we're going to be talking about specifically the Bluebeam Studio and projects and sessions and what you can do through the apps. Mainly, I wanted to emphasize this because last week we talked about the ability to do some things in Forma, and we want to do a compare and contrast, especially with a lot of the announcements of the app going away. We've been getting a lot of emails and questions from all of you, not specifically folks that join this, but just people in the community in general, asking about the app and where it's going and thinking that Bluebeam Cloud is going away as well. So let's talk about what you can and cannot do in the desktop application, and then what you can and cannot do in the application via the cloud, because that's will be the predominant app. And my thought was originally that it's Unbound for a reason. The name of the conference that Bluebeam is going to be having versus like XCon in the past. They just named it Live before. Hint the Unbound part of it. My thought would be because they're allowing you to use the application anywhere, get access to it from a mobile device, and then allowing you to also use the desktop application, but kind of showing you what those workflows look like. So first, we'll talk about the desktop application and what you can and cannot do from a studio perspective, the limitations of studio, because we haven't hashed that out in quite a while, and then what you can and cannot do in the app. So that'll be for iOS and Android. Excuse me, for all of you Android users, they're very behind from an application update in comparison to the iOS application, which has hindered some folks that I've talked to recently about Android versus Apple. Just be aware that they've had a longer standing from an app development. Even though the iPad app wasn't the best, it still worked well for what it was needed to be used for. So just be aware of that. Yeah, they had to build out an Android team. Because, I mean, it worked. It always worked on the Surface Pro because it runs off and operates off Windows from a desktop application standpoint. But, yeah, so let me check and make sure I'm good with sharing, and then we'll get into it. Check my file. We'll delete this. And that one. Perfect. So let's talk about some limitations. I have a limitation list pulled up on what you can and cannot do within Studio. So Studio sessions versus Studio projects. Be aware when you're in review, there is this panel called Sessions, or it's called Studio, sorry. It looks just like a house. Everyone has access to it. I'm in the Review Advanced profile if you're following along, is what I'll be mainly in. And this panel looks just like a studio, little home. You click it. Everyone has access to this. Choose a server. I guess it logged me out. It shouldn't always log you out. I think maybe I updated it. I don't recall. But you should automatically log in with your credentials because now it's based off of user. So as long as you're signed in, you'll have access to what's called Studio. Now, you do get to pick your server. Again, if I go back and select which ones I have options to, this is just where the AWS server essentially lives. A server is always somewhere in a region. So we have United States, we have the UK, we have Australia, Germany, and Sweden. Now, people have asked, can we store our files locally and get access to them into a studio project or sessions? That is not possible yet. People have also asked, is it FedRamped? Trying to get a better understanding. It is not. Now, just be aware, these two are storing things. Whenever you store something in Studio, it's stored in a cloud environment in specifically AWS servers. So you do need to be aware of that. And again, it's not FedRamped. So if you are working in these, those files are stored in the cloud. So there, whatever restrictions you have on your projects, you can't store it local to your own DNS server or something like that. So you need to be very hyper aware if people are uploading files. That's kind of where Studio Prime came into the factor of leveraging that to understand from an IT perspective who's uploading what, because you can upload whatever you'd like as a user into a studio project or session. If you have the basic tier license, though, you can't start a project or a session. You'd have to be invited. But if you're invited, you can upload whatever you'd like into the AWS servers. Now, there is the ability to limit folks downloading with access to Studio. So if you're just worried altogether about having access to this powerful tool, you can install these without access to Studio. So just be aware of that. Now back to the Studio Prime thought process, that will be going away. The ability to monitor what people are uploading from your domain into an AWS server. They will be rolling that into your own software management tool that they have, which is your license portal, essentially. They will be rolling that into there, and there will be a paywall. If you go and read through the notes, it's more refined, and it does say in there that they will be charging you. So it won't be free to get access to the studio session portion and monitoring what's part of that for sessions and projects, just like you had with Studio Prime. It will probably look different, I would assume. And then the API will be free access. So if you want to go through in development tools, you're more than happy to go through in development tools. Just be aware of that. Of course, as Bluebeam progresses, they're probably going to track what APIs are more successful. And you probably see something similar to what Autodesk does, which is when they find successful APIs, they just go and buy them, right? People that are actually making tools that are validated and used heavily. That's an assumption, safe harbor statement there. I don't know if that's actually true or not. So yeah, I could just see that happening. Okay, so projects. Again, projects is unlimited storage for any file type. What are the limitations for projects? Maximum attendees, unlimited. Maximum files, unlimited. What files are supported? So again, if you're looking at projects, which is more of that storage perspective, and by the way, I submitted a class on dashboards for Unbound, and that's kind of that same process of storing files within a server that anyone can get access to as long as they're invited into the project. Of course, there's limitations for what they're able to do and not do. Wow. So now you can upload a BEX file into there. You didn't used to be able to, so that's cool. It says you can upload sets. But anyways, going back, you can do Word, Excel, PowerPoint, CSV, anything a typical FTP site could store. They can store in there. The sets wasn't able to. I've done that before, and you can't click the set open, but maybe we'll try that at some point. Definitely not today, but if we go back and talk about sets, maybe uploading it into there at some point. So in order to start a project, you just hit the plus button and we'll do MCR. I'll show you kind of the ability to store any file type. You could essentially store a Revit file if you wanted to, but once you've created a project, you have the ability to hit the drawbar here, and this is now your project. Here's the ID, total users. You can come into here and get user access. You can add attendees if you wanted, if you created groups. You have the ability to add groups into here. You have permissions, and this is the permissions for the overall project. So it kind of operates like Autodesk Construction Cloud, where you have permissions set from a project level, meaning what can they do within here from a project? Can they have full control? Can they share links? Can they revoke people's checkouts? And then they have folder permissions. Folder permissions would be limiting people's access to specific folders, just like Autodesk Construction Cloud, right? You have your admin portal where you have the ability to give people access to your hub. And then you have folder permissions, which would be the same as specific permission levels within the project in Autodesk Construction Cloud. So kind of like the same similar process. You've invited people, you can change those people's attendees specific to you creating folders. So like if I did files, and then maybe I'll do another one like specific Revit projects. You can store a Revit file in here as well. So within the root of this, I have this Revit project. I think I have something on my desktop I can just grab and drop into here. As long as it's not a central model, which I don't think this one is, but we'll find out. I'm almost positive this is Revit 2024. 1 second. That's why you should name the annual editions of it. So I'll open Revit, and then also we'll just throw in some CSV files. So if you wanted from an Excel level, you can store it here as well. Now, when it's stored in here, you do have the ability to open the file in a read-only manner. That was just by double-clicking, and you'll see that it says read-only right up here. I guess if I make this larger. So this is a read-only file. The reason why it's a read-only file is because you have to check it out. So it works as a check-in, check-out basis for file, from a file perspective of making sure data is true. So I could open it, read it. Other people can open it and read it if they're invited into the project. But what you're able to do is hit checkout, and then now you own it. People can still open it as read-only. They won't get any updates if you're going through and updating it. And then you can open it, and it's no longer read-only. You can update it here. So organization name, we'll just do Michael. I could hit save. You just have to hit save, and it actually pushes it back into here. You can check it in with any updates that you had. And then if they reopen it again, they'll have that update, right? It's in read-only because I checked it in. Same kind of thought process for a Revit file. You could actually store a Revit file if you wanted. As long as it's not a central file, you have that ability. You just need to know, that's why I was talking earlier about what annual year that is specifically for the project. You just have to know what year it was in, because when you check it out and you're getting ready to open it, it opens up your latest opened Revit. Yeah, see, it was opened in a newer release in 2025. So I'll close that and I'll go Revit 2025. But yeah, essentially same thing. You can check it out. You can then open it. You just need to know what year it was, because whatever that year is edition, you will be able to go through and update it from there. So same thought process, and then files, if you wanted to use PDFs in here, anything you need to, you can store in here. See if anyone's asking any questions. Yeah, sets has always been complicated, yeah. I swear I have one somewhere that I could click, but I think maybe it has to just be rooted to there. We'll try it. We'll go over sets someday again and see if it works from that perspective. But all right, now that I have 2025 as it opens, we'll open this project and kind of show you from that perspective. You can still work in a Revit file. Again, just can't be a central file. If you needed to have access to it anywhere, again, maybe you have Revit Review installed on your desktop work application, and then you need to go home and finish some things up, and you don't have like a mobile laptop, but you have a computer at home, right? You can sign in depending on your authentication. If you have two-factor or not, you could essentially install Revit at home, sign in, but then you need to get access to the file in one stored location, and not using from a docs perspective, right, within Autodesk Construction Cloud. You can do the same kind of thought process here if you wanted, just giving you options, and store a Revit file in here as well. So essentially, now that that's open, I can double click it. It's going to open up in your latest version, which this one was Revit 2025. And now, just again, with that double click, I can go through and then just model some walls. Then what I'm able to do is save it. I can then close it, and we can go back and look at it from a review standpoint. Double click it again. Going to open this thing back up, and my wall was there as well. So just being aware, same thing. You can work off of it from a project environment if you ever needed to, using Revit. You could use AutoCAD. I think Civil 3D may have an issue I haven't tried it. That would be a Jason question because they have that like sheet set thing in there. I know David, you probably know, but yeah, basically Civil 3D may have an issue. I just haven't tried Civil 3D. It's not my wheelhouse. So being aware of that. This is what projects is for. You can do things like we talked about before. I'll be talking about the ability to go through and create dashboards. So if you wanted to, you can create these things called dashboards, which would allow you to click through these files and navigate them easier. This will be more important when we go through and leverage the cloud platform for a single document storage location. So you could essentially store your RFIs. It jumps to the RFI page. You can then open up your RFIs from here. People then can hit OK, open them. I would personally, if I was running these RFIs, I would do a back and forth selectable link that opens up a file location. But same thing, you can look at these, have access to them. You can go and look at your site plans if you had any. This one also has like a clickable phone list. So if you want to go and look at your phone list, any DWG files that you had, like architecture, maybe you want to do wall sections. Some enlarged plan is actually in the wall sections, but yeah, same thing. Links work. All good from a perspective of understanding how this will be probably more important now that they removed the what it was called like Project Rover before, then Cloud, and then they confused everybody. But when they removed the clickable selections from there. So going back, you have maximum files unlimited. Just be aware that there is a caveat for unlimited maximum file size because the overall storage of this will basically limit the loading time on things. It looks like they removed the stylus from this because it used to, yeah, see, although projects offers limited file storage, it used to have like a little star right here, which then pointed to this, but it looks like they just put this here. Unlimited file storage. Our best practices suggest keep the file size under 10 gigabytes. So just keep your files under 10 gigs, the overall project, right? So keeping that under 10 gigs, or you do have slow open and close time. Total storage, yep, perfect. And then these are just user accesses and things that you can and cannot do. So the next one would be sessions. But before we go forward, let's talk about the platform that's in the iOS devices. So iOS app coming soon. This is actually fully operational for studio projects. It looks like they just haven't updated this page, which is their technical support page. So if you go over and you look at their cloud release notes, here you have the ability to get access to projects on the iOS device. That was released when? Right here. So October 2024. They haven't updated this page since October 2024. Access to project files. So you can, on the iOS device, get access to projects. You cannot get access to projects on the Android application. So be aware of that. If you're using the Android app and you're using this process of folks going out into the field and getting access to documents, they have an Android phone. They can't see documents that are in projects. You would have to use the studio workflow in the meantime until the Android app gets updated. Because as of October last year, you were able to for this device, but Android does not have that ability yet. Android's latest update was just sessions offline. There hasn't been any update to the ability to access. I'll just go to the non.1 editions. Yep, sessions. There hasn't been an update to get access to the projects portion of it. So just the iOS app has that. Moving forward, what else they got down here? Common case scenarios. Okay, perfect. So the next one is sessions, that live collaboration. You have the ability to add up to 500 users. This was that comparison we were doing last week on Forma and how Forma, from an Autodesk perspective, now has live collaboration. I was thinking a little bit more about that the other day. It's not necessarily on a PDF though. It's on a board, which would just be a digital visualization of, I don't know if it's like vector versus raster. I guess it's almost 3D as well. So it's kind of a different perspective from a portable document format. But being aware that people are starting to get into this collaboration game. So let's see what you can do from a sessions perspective, which used to be a specific differentiator for them. So maximum attendees are up to 500 users. So 500 folks can be invited into a session. This would be something if you're going out into the field and you want everyone to have access to the latest and greatest and mark up collaboratively. Although I have seen folks use this from like a punch list perspective, but ultimately you can store something in projects as its true source of truth here, and then it could be pushed into sessions to collaborate if they needed to mark up or like punch list, and then it can go back into projects as its source of truth. So sessions allows you to add 500 users per session. You can add up to 5,000 documents, but they only allow you to use PDFs. Now, per PDF in here, you can have 5,000, but each one can only be a gigabyte per. So you can have 5,000 gigabytes, I guess, almost like a terabyte of files storage, I guess, in there. But just be aware of that. And then you have 10 megabytes per markup, which would be, this would be more concerning from like a JPEG perspective. You know, what photos are you taking, high res photos, and then attaching them, which you can't attach yet from the app. So if you're out in the field doing like a punch list walkthrough, in the future you will. Right now you can just drop a photo. So your photo can exceed like 10 megs. I haven't seen a markup ever get up to 10 megs unless you're attaching a photo to it, right? So yeah, it would be 5 terabytes, but I think it's so one I think it follows the same thing. Like a byte is 1024 to your megabytes, and then megabytes into the next one, right? So it's 1024, I think, is the conversion rate. But yeah. Yeah, okay, perfect. Now moving forward, let's go and talk about the application from sessions. So again, if I go back up here and store a PDF, let's drag and drop this one. You could have initiated, maybe you want to store your files here in projects so people have access to them, but everyone's out in the field and they want to do a punch walkthrough for the structural set. Let's just say, for instance, they could essentially, this is your single source of truth that everyone's had access to the entire time. Maybe you wanted to do a punch walkthrough on this set. You don't need to upload into sessions. You could essentially just add this into a new session. So we'll actually create a session from here, session link, so that you can see this kind of process as we then go to the mobile app, which would be the web-based app for me. I don't think I'll open it up in my phone, but essentially what you're able to do is from this perspective now, great, the project's been open. Now we have a session, and you'll see there's a new session icon on this PDF indicating to you in the project that there's been a session initiated specifically for this workflow. So now if I close this out, this document's now in a session and we can go through. I guess I had signatures on this one. Great. Now we can go through and mark up on this PDF specifically as we're collaborating for like a punch walkthrough or something, right? Maybe we wanted to go through and look at some of how these details and how things are being constructed on site. You have that ability to go through and create some revisions on a single source of truth file that's stored in here. No worries, David. Have a good one. But yeah, basically you have that ability to go through and store this in that project. And if you wanted, you could update the project copy here if you wanted people to have some of intermittent updates. But basically you could plug in an update to the project copy and still run the session. And this would be running this in the field, right? So you could essentially go to the app. So if I wanted to go to app.bluebeam.com, I could sign in here. We'll do this one. I'll probably, let me invite my other one. So then you could essentially invite your team members into here. You could also copy a session link if you need it as well. But basically what I'll do is I'll open up my groups. I have my subcontractor here. Nope, that's definitely not the one I want. Stop inviting. I wanted the other one. There we go, demo. So I'll invite that one. Now I'll see how long it takes to join, and I'll see if it also works on my phone. So let me go to my phone real quick. If not, I have one that's already accessible. Yep, MCR link. Look at that. So it already brought this up. You probably won't be able to see it as well as an invite. So I'm on my phone. I can click this, and Joe's now joined. He can also open up the PDF itself here, and I can scroll in and make markups. Perfect. So now that Joe's joined, the only thing I don't like is that even though it says follow attendee as of right now, it doesn't truly follow like it does from a web-based or desktop application. So if someone else opened this session and was working live with me, you could essentially follow them in their movements, but it doesn't from an iPhone perspective yet. It used to for sure, but now it doesn't at this moment that they're updating it. But anyways, I will still go to the same, we'll go to detail 3 over here, and I'll look at it from a PDF perspective. So let me go back and scroll over to the detail page here. And you do have the ability to live. So I'm looking down and marking up on my phone, and there's the markup there, right? So you're not seeing my mouse moving. So if I was out in the field and I needed to notate something, I could easily go through and do this. I'm going to leave a comment here and just says, was not built correctly. So I could be out in the field, right? There's the comment exactly right here, and it's being notated here, and I could do the same thing. Yeah, correct, Chris. So like I can't edit this markup that my phone just made because it's a different user. And by the way, this user is a free user. So if you had any subs out in the field, they just need to download the app, create an email address, which is a Bluebeam ID, and get access to it on their phone, right? So if they have an iPhone, they have that ability to get access to this without paying for it. That's the beauty of it, is that they aren't limiting you to a license, right? Like Autodesk Construction Cloud, from that perspective, you have to pay to play. Typically, you get like an unlimited if a GC is going to be using Build, right? You'll have an unlimited license and give to everybody licenses on that project. But if you had this and you wanted to use this workflow, again, this is stored from the project itself. So all the files are in one location, but you have that same process. So no, I cannot edit Joe's, but Joe's able to go through and make these markups. Now, as of right now, if I'm holding down this markup on my phone and I want to edit it, they don't give you the ability to attach a photo yet. That's kind of been my second gripe, but that's fine, because where they are at is I could download this file. Oh, I can see active attendees. That's cool. But yeah, basically you could download this file local. So they do have that ability to get access to your files. If you look up here, that was their latest update. Where did I put that at? Release notes. This sessions offline is huge because people may be working in the field and their internet connection isn't feasible from their data perspective, right? Like there's no cell phone towers in that area, and then there's no Wi-Fi. So you have that ability. It now works with documents offline and unstable connections. Yeah, this is sessions still, They haven't done that yet for project files. So that was another conversation I've had with somebody. It's great. I'm storing it in projects. They have access to it on their iOS device, but they can't see the PDFs because they don't have internet connection. That's when you would probably initiate a session, upload a bunch of those files from projects into sessions. They could view them out in the field before they go to the field, download it local to their iPhone, and then go onto the field and have access to it. They can also make markups without internet connection, which go to pending, but that same kind of process. So just be aware, with this free app, you do have that option to mark up lightly. And that means that you can use a rectangle, cloud, ellipse, vector pen, text, arrow, call out, highlight, pen, cloud plus, all on your phone. So they can just be on their phone, full access to these files. Now, if I'm on the web-based app here, I do have that same thing. You have documents, workplaces, you have projects. Again, the iOS device has access to these projects as well. So you go look at your project files from here. It won't let you access the RVT file or this Excel file. I wonder if they're ever going to be able to let you access like web-based Excel. That would be cool. Like if I store this in here, why can't I access it via web-based Excel? I don't know. Who knows? Okay, but I can go back to sessions here. We can go back to MCR link. I can click this MCR link here, and that's because I currently am in this on my other device. So this is going to be upset. It's going to kick me out, and then I would have to hit refresh. It's all APIs, David. If somebody creates the API, I don't see why they wouldn't. So just be aware that this gets upset if I'm logged in, desktop application. Yeah, it's going to take a second to authenticate. So I'll just go to the other one. It has an issue with IDs, meaning I was logged in here and trying to authenticate it for the same project in the same location, which it didn't like. So you will have those issues. But anyways, being into here in a different session, I have that ability to come in here and mark up. But I do have the ability to measure, not yet on my phone. So you do have that ability to come into here, do poly length, area measurement, or even a count now. I tried counts the other day because that was a question where I uploaded a custom tool set that had counts on it. Not yet. The count that you can do is only the count that they give you, which is just a check. But that's fine. We have a starting point. That's good, right? You can change the count to a circle or a triangle if you wanted. But that's where we're at now. I wonder if I can continue the count. Where did that count go? Yeah. You can't resume count. That's great. But it's probably because it's only one singular count of those. But anyways, so in that same sequence, and it doesn't let you move all of them at once, but it just deletes all of them. Okay, we won't get too deep into this because I don't want to squirrel my way into that. But yeah, basically you do have area, poly length, and then just length in general. And then you have your tool sets up here. So you have that option to go to your custom tool sets that you've added. You can add more. Now, this is the one thing, again, I don't like yet, is that you can't select a markup. Okay, I'll make a new markup since there's so many that are probably not mine. You can't select a markup here and add a photo yet. I could save that to my tool chest if I wanted to. That markup also has properties. So if we go back to sessions and what you're able to access within sessions itself from a custom markup perspective from a status, you could essentially, I don't think I'd change these to have a changing color, but if you uploaded these correctly and you had these markups that had custom statuses, you still have that option to have statuses within sessions itself in the cloud. So everything's supposed to follow suit smoothly from one solution to the next. Your interactions are obviously going to be different, because you have that ability to use a web-based application. An iOS device is going to be a little bit different than a web-based application versus the desktop application. But their theory is to be unbound and have access anywhere. So this would be just one workflow again, storing your files in a project, linking them into a session so people have access to them. That way, then they could also have access to them on the Android device because it's limited right now. They're supposed to have this unbound theory ironed out, hopefully by Unbound. That's my thought, at least, when we're all there and everything should be one-to-one. Just different interaction. But you do have this markups list. So if anyone made comments, you could see any of the comments of any of your markups that have been placed. Again, extreme ownership here of markups. So I can't go through and modify anyone else's markups that were made unless I was the one making them. So be aware of that. There is the projects access here on the web-based application. So if I go through again, you can open up your PDFs from this perspective, and this is locked because it was made with signatures. But you also have My Workplace. So if you wanted to store a file just for yourself, you could do that as well. Maybe you needed to edit something before you go out, or you're catching a flight or something. There's My Workspace. Then there's just documents all together. And this is documents to access like SharePoint or OneDrive. So if you wanted to store those in SharePoint or OneDrive, which is kind of funny because they don't let you in sessions upload to SharePoint or OneDrive like your own DNS server. So that's kind of funny. But in here you can, if you want to get access to your OneDrive or your SharePoint, which maybe I'll try OneDrive at some point. I'll probably have to reach out to my team as well. Let's see. You think Microsoft will allow that? Yeah, that's what I said earlier. Excel's online is lacking. Yeah. Some people use Excel online almost all the time, Doug. I know a couple folks that do that. Yeah, Chris, for that, you just need a Bluebeam ID because you can't invite anybody. So if you had somebody out in the field that wanted to get access to these PDFs, they just need to create a studio ID. So they just go to Bluebeam. They go to app.bluebeam.com. So like if I were to log out, they could come into here and you can say sign in, I believe, or sign up. Be the new one. What does sign up look like? Yeah. So you just do your name, your display name. You, as the individual, meaning you, Chris, would invite this, whatever their email address they used in the session. So you would come into here, you would go to that session, and you would invite that email address. Now you can then, once they've created that ID, maybe they logged out, you'd share them a link again. So if you wanted to copy the link, they could essentially get access via the link now, which is pretty cool. So you just post that link. I forgot that it does this whole, hey, would you like to join this MCR thing? Here's the whole URL. I guess it's because it's supposed to be like copy pasted in an email. But yeah, so you could join via the web. You can send them this link and then they can go and reprompt them to sign back in to get access to it. But yeah, free account. Their free account essentially has the same access as a basic user does in Bluebeam. So in basics of Bluebeam, you can't start a studio session or project, and there's limited markups in the basic tier. Remember, you can't do like polylink or any of those stuff. So being aware that that's kind of what that free version does. It's like a basic tier within studio sessions, right? So just be aware of that. Now, this all holds true except for the other mobile device, because people may have purchased iPads, iCloud. This is great for iPads, right? Because you'll have that iOS device that old iPad app is going away. You would use Bluebeam Cloud. So that's kind of where people are getting confused. hey, the app's going away. Yes, the old desktop application app for iOS is being deleted. Um, it's not being deleted. It's no longer being accessible or downloadable from the App Store in December. So you'll want to download it and have access to it. That will go away. And then what will be taking over is the Bluebeam Cloud application, which gives you access to projects and sessions, your own document workplace. Hopefully by then, we would all hope that they fully have that worked out from what you can and cannot do. Remember that iPad app was a little bit clunky, completely different user interface because it was the old 2018 and below user interface. But just being aware, that's will be the workflow for iPad users. Now, the other mobile tablet would be Surface Pros. Now, Surface Pros, again, are just like what we have here. It's a desktop application. So Jason and I have had conversations before about comparing iPad to your Surface Pro. I think we're all back in that Surface Pro vein just because it's a desktop application. But I'm also an iOS user. For my mobile devices, I would still probably use an iPad when finally the full functionality comes out for the mobile device. I've used the sessions workflow for doing a punch list in our own corporate office, which before they had counts. So I had to go back and do counts over my markups. So I think I did that. Where's that? That's in the sessions. Let's see. I had to go back and do counts over our furniture layout. So I made this was my workaround, was do a highlighter for different colors to count. This was the workflow I did to make sure that these chairs were where they needed to be and how many chairs did we have left. But I could have now done a count on the mobile phone. So I probably would have done triangles and then circles for different types of chairs. Where I did highlights this time. So then I went back and placed the count. But basically, again, you can do the same workflow now on your phone. That's what I did with this. Anyone know how to get a Bluebeam PDF, I'm assuming, to download all files that are hyperlinked to a PDF? Download the file from where? And there's hyperlinks, I guess, would be the next thing. So if things had hyperlinks, you mean studio projects? I'll wait. No, the PDF with hyperlinks. So if you're downloading it from where, that would be the question, because it just depends on where that file is hyperlinked to. Because essentially hyperlinks being hyperlinks to other PDFs. It would just be more understanding the workflow. But basically, yeah, so if you have a PDF set that has hyperlinks, right? This one doesn't currently have them. You could create hyperlinks here. No, it's in title comments. Yeah, I don't. So basically, I'll just work through some scenarios, and at some point, maybe we'll have a better understanding of it. But basically, what you can do is I can select a region of data and create hyperlinks here. Now, there may be a workflow where you're looking for hyperlinks that are ran from other file locations, right? So now I have hyperlinks that jump me to pages, but I could also create a hyperlink that jumps me to a file location, right? So there's that ability to come into here and use this hyperlink tool just by itself and say, this jumps me to a hyperlink of a said location, right? So it could be a web base, or it could open a file on my local desktop. Now, if it did that, there's that issue. This hyperlink won't maintain because it's a local file location if someone else tries to access it. So that would be an issue. If I were opening a file on my local desktop application, people are going to have an issue accessing that file in that file location because it's not true, right? So that would be an issue. Now, hyperlinks to a different location, it should store in the metadata wherever it's at, just depending on how that PDF was formatted. The format issues where it comes down to, does everyone have access to that hyperlink? If it stays in a single PDF location, meaning all PDFs are compiled into one, hyperlink should maintain wherever they're at. So if I were to upload this PDF to somewhere and someone downloaded it, right? So if I say this is my desktop, example, the hyperlinks still work. It's at my, I think I stored it on my desktop. I guess I need to always look and remember where. Maybe I did desktop. That's why I needed to not just click through things quick. I'm gonna start it here. All right, we'll run it back. File save. Let me run hyperlinks. Select here and generate, and then we'll hit run. Perfect. I'll save as. So it went to my OneDrive. Cool. Don't just click quick through things. But yeah, so now I saved it to my desktop here, and you can hover over and it shows you that example too. I probably should have done that before. I just hit close. But let me go to my desktop, example, drag. So this had hyperlinks before, and I dragged it into now our studio project. And you still have that option. I'm clicking through this and it still works. So hyperlinks are working. Again, just depends on what type of hyperlinks we're talking about. And then if I'm like, hey, great, that's awesome. I want to download a copy to my desktop, and we'll just do 2.0. Do hyperlinks still work? So I'll download that there. We'll hit escape, escape again, and then I'll do file open. We'll grab that 2.0. Hyperlink still should work, even though I downloaded it from a different location. So now if hyperlinks didn't work, you would be going back through and checking. You could do that from a links perspective. So if I go to show, and if I want to go to here, I can go and look at your links here as well. So these are all of your links. Now, it's not easy to replace any of these, but you can edit your action from here as well. Oh, this is places. That's cool. But yeah, but basically you can come here and reestablish where those links are, visually see where these links run. The only thing is oh, you could change relative path here too. That's pretty cool. So if this was stored at a different location, you could have it look from a relative path, which is just the file name, which that would help if you had an issue of how they were not working, but they're on the local server. So everyone has access to the server and the files where they're at, but the links aren't working because they're saved by the user. Then you would probably want to do relative path. So yeah. Can you upload the 2-point file and have the markup be on the 2-point set? Yeah, I mean, I could upload this into projects and have the markup just on this one, yeah. But if we're looking at it from like projects perspective, I wouldn't have saved it out. I would have just marked up and checked out here this example one. So instead of the 2.0, I would have opened it, checked it out, and then marked up here, and then checked it back in. That's what I would have done. And it still works in projects. But yeah, you can mark up. If I go back to that 2.0 one, I can open this one and I can mark this up too. Yeah. I think that was your question. But again, going back to the hyperlinks, Sheldon, that hyperlink should work, I think. It would just come down to how the links were formatted and where the hyperlinks were going, essentially. Chris, did I answer your question too? Hopefully. Yeah, hyperlinks are weird because some PDFs don't format them properly. People ask about that all the time, so it just really depends on where the hyperlinks are going to. The drawing set, Chris. Yeah, so the drawing set, I can mark this up. You said, can you upload the 2.0 file and have the markup be on the 2.0 set? So if I upload this into here with a markup, I can save and then I can go back to here. It's not updating that set here because the 2.0 doesn't live here. Remember, we haven't dropped it in yet. But yeah, I can redrop that 2.0 one. Is it really in my OneDrive? Hold on. This one is on my completed sets. So just defaulted into there. Hilarious. So we'll go to documents, completed sets. Where is that at? It's under Bluebeam review completed sets. Okay. Yeah, so essentially now what I could do is I could drop this 2.0 here. And you'll see the markups. Even though I marked it up, the hyperlinks still work. There's the markup. And hyperlinks still work. Perfect. Now, if I wanted to get markups from this PDF 2.0 to my original set here, you could do the same thing where I can essentially just check this out. And I think some folks forget about this solution within Bluebeam. But yeah, basically I can come into here. Hey, maybe this example, I want this one to have those markups that our 2.0 one did. You can just go to your markups list here, go to markups right down here, markups list. Let me give you some more real estate. Then markups and import markups from that 2.0 set. And those markups will come over to here. And there's that cloud that was on that 2.0 set. So same thought process. Hopefully that answered your question, Chris, the new one that you just sent. So yeah, I mean, even if you didn't have it on the newer set or you made it on the old set, you can always get markups from one PDF to the next, regardless of if it's coming from an old new set. You can always import or export. The 2.0 was a complete copy that I saved to my desktop. Yeah, perfect. What I would have done is if I would have just maintained this as a single source of truth, I wouldn't have downloaded or done anything like that. This would have been, I wouldn't have had a 2.0. I would have opened this up, checked it out, modified it, checked it back in, right? There's no upload, download. It stays and lives in here. If I needed to work on this example one and mark it up so everyone has access to it, I would have checked it out, marked it up, and checked it back in. Because you can do revision history in here too. So you can see when everyone checks it out, checks it back in. You can open up these. So this does monitor from a revision history perspective. This is where I would have done everything. Because when you opened it up in the desktop application and you check it out, you have full access to do whatever you'd want from a document management perspective. I can go to file access here. I can move the pages around. I can mark up. I can slip sheet if I wanted to as well. And then check this thing back in. Everyone has access to it. Now, sessions, you can't do document management, right? It's meant to do markups on the specific state of that set. But if it lives in projects, you can check it out of the session, back into the studio project, do your document manipulation, push it back into sessions. That's kind of like your bypass. That's the workflow that's meant to be done, because sessions is meant to be marking up at the current state of the current document, and projects is meant to store your files. So then from here again, whenever you check this thing back in, if I were to do this, and you know what, we'll just do something drastic. and do edit, PDF content. We'll cut half this thing out, and then we'll check it in. So from here, now that it's checked in, you'll see this. What page is this? 5. So what I'm able to do is I can actually go to revision history, and we'll go back one. I can actually open that revision side by side, right? So here's this one from revision 3 example. And this one is page 5 before, and this is the new one. So you have this history. You could restore back to this revision if you wanted, or you could save this out as a copy as if you wanted to as well. There's an infinite amount of revisions from your check-ins of this file. So that's pretty cool from a data recovery perspective. So that's projects, that is links, that is the application you have from your desktop to your field app, from Android to iPhone, really extending that reach and that ability to have access to your mobile device and desktop application anywhere. Hopefully they kind of iron that out when we go to Unbound, because again, right now, for all of you Android users, you're a little bit behind, but from an iOS perspective, you have that full capability. As they start to roll these things out, they haven't released anything new for the iOS app since March 4th, and we're in April. So I guess they did an April bug fix, it looks like. That's weird that this is first, because that's probably when they did an actual update. So these are just bug fixes. But yeah, being aware of that moving forward, that iOS is more so web first, iOS, then Android. That's kind of the circle that it runs when it's up, when they're updating features. First, they'll go to the web-based application, then iOS, then Android. Android's well behind any updates that are going to be released. So Android, you can't use projects yet. Sessions, you can. iOS, you can use projects and sessions. So just be aware when you're implementing these and what those folks have access to in the field. But if people have iPhones, they can fully go and have access to that right now and use that workflow moving forward. But as always, I appreciate every single one of you tuning in and joining us. Jason will be back next week. I don't know what our topic is, so hopefully you enjoyed our topic today. In the meantime, and until next time, we'll see you all next week. But again, I truly appreciate every single one of you. Wouldn't be able to have MCR if it wasn't for every single one of you joining in. Thanks, Doug. And until next time, we'll see you all then. Sound good? Alrighty. Have a good one, everybody. Have a good week, too.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe and check out some of the other content on our channel.